Okay, so this is the Houdini training for artists. And the idea of this tutorial is to give you an overview of Houdini and start teaching you more things from an artist's perspective. Because I know there are like many tutorials out there that are focused on many logical things and it's kind of scary. So I hope I can I can deliver what you want. And yeah, so let's take these steps with an artist approach. And with that, I'm with Guillermo, PFX artist. Hi, Guillermo.
Hey guys.
So, Guillermo, you can ask me anything you feel like. If anything is not clear,
Of
just
course.
feel free to
Yeah, I
interrupt
am
me.
also new to Houdini, so I'll be asking you a lot of things. Go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, I succeed if you learn, I think. So,
Of course.
because you're a very like artistic guy, so I know you don't have any background in programming or anything like that.
hmm
So
Yes, I do VFX and I haven't tried Houdini yet, so I'm here to learn with you too.
yeah, should be fun. Okay, you
Yes,
can see my screen, right?
of course.
Okay, so let's start with the very basic. What is Houdini? So Houdini is basically a 3D package. I know like it's kind of confusing because many people ask what is this thing that can do magic, and I only use Max, Blender, or whatever. And when I see Houdini, like it looks like completely different. But in the end, it's just any 3D package, just like Max, Blender, Maya. It's just that the way you work in Houdini is a little bit different. The way you work in Houdini is like you can have nodes, and instead of working in the viewport, you will work with the nodes. We almost we will try to avoid in any situation to use the viewport to do any change, because if we do that, we lose the procedural approach. So basically, Houdini is like a 3D package, and I won't get into much detail about the interface, but I just want you to let you know that this panel here, like I never use really, and
Hmm.
what you see here are essentially the nodes which we will use down here. So at first you
I
can,
find it uh,
yes.
I find it a little hard to imagine how you can create something just with nodes and not by modifying it on the viewport.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's a little hard to imagine it.
yeah. I guess
Yeah.
like the best way is to show you. So
hmm
most of our time we will spend in looking at this window here. So actually I will make it a little bit bigger. This is our network. So we will create anything here. Like just like Substance, you want to start building from the basis. And if you just like a waterfall, like if you change anything at the beginning of the flow, then the rest of the nodes will change based on the new parameters, just like if it were the domino effect. So I
hmm
just think of it like if it's a 3D package, but instead of using the viewport, you will use nodes. And to be honest, the nodes can be quite overwhelming, especially at the beginning. But it's just like Substance. Like at the beginning, Substance has like many nodes, and it's overwhelming too. But after a while, like you know which ones you use most and which ones like you do it over and over again, so you know how to use them.
I get
So
it.
yeah, I'm sure we will get into that. So let's get started. So here is the viewport, and the way you navigate, I think it's like Maya. So like hold Alt, right click, up and down, like zoom, left click, rotate, and middle mouse click to pan. Then if you want to zoom in like a particular object, hold like spacebar and F. Um, that's it. I won't tell you more
Mhm.
information about this. I mean, we will get slowly into this, but that's all you need to know. Like you can move like Maya, and like I said, we won't use the viewport at all unless we want to debug something
Right.
or anything. So let's get started. So I will click here in the network, and you see here I have many networks. I have like this one, this one, this one, like for materials. This one is for OBJ. This one is for, I think it's for like when you want to do a render. So we will most of the time we'll be using this one. And what is it is like you can have many different networks, and I will create a cube like two different methods. So I press tab, and then I have a list of things I can create here. And you will see here that I have geometry. And what it does is we create a geometry node, which is one of the most important, and it's the one we will focus on most of the time. So I want you to take a look at this. I will come back here, but first if I click here and then I click geometry, then I can select where I want the node to appear, then click again, and now I have a geometry mode. Now look at this. If I like right click, it's right click or tab. So if I right click of tab, I have a list of nodes I can create here. And the list of nodes is available depending on which part of the network we are in. In this case, we are in the OBJ.
Mhm.
But what happens if I enter to the node geometry? If I right click, I have a different list, right, with much more nodes here. And those nodes are specific to the geometry node. So most people get confused about like people talk about SOAP, BOP, like SOP, BOP, and basically it's just a way of referring to this kind of network. So just create an I think it's attribute SOP, which stands for surface operator. So most of the time you will find like the documentation like what the hell is SOP? Well, SOP is just basically
Mhm.
geometry, which we will use most of the time. Like remember, this is like Houdini for artists, so I I won't I won't give you like much information about the rest.
Mhm.
So this is a geometry node, and if I click here, nothing happens, right? So let me try to create a cube here. If I click here, I can create any one of those, and say I want to create a box, then I can click here and then click whenever I want in the map, and you can see now I have two geometry nodes. I have this one, the box, which I just created, and this one, which is empty, which is the same.
Could you enter on the box object?
Yeah.
Enter inside the node of the box? Hmm.
So if you enter here, you will see that we have a box here, right?
Hmm.
What this did is kind of like a shortcut where it creates the geometry node for you to work on and also
Hmm.
creates a box. So some people get confused about this part and this part because you see you have like translate, rotate, and scale, right? And you
Right.
will think that that's the properties of the box, but it's not. That's the properties of the entire network.
Hmm.
So let me
So in there,
demonstrate you. So if I click
right.
here and then I see the box, I see a different parameter, right?
Hmm.
So what I want to do is tap and create box. Let me create another one. So this one will be here, and I will move it. Now I can move it because in this part I have the show handle operator, which is basically a visual representation of what we have here. The handle will change depending on which node we are using, but basically if I hold down middle mouse click and drag, I can move it, right?
Hmm.
Or if I click on this, I can kind of like a shortcut where I could just move the objects instead of using this panel. I can use these ones. Uh,
One question: why is there a light blue icon on the right on the box too? Why did you click on the right?
all right.
What's the difference?
So this icon represents that this object is visible. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah.
However, uh, now you see the yellow border here. This means that I'm
Yeah.
changing the properties of this box.
Hmm.
However, this box is not being displayed because it doesn't have the blue one. But if I click on it, you still won't see it. You will see the handle, but because I have this
Hmm.
selected, if I don't want to see it, I will just click here, and I will see this mesh. Okay, but I
Right.
have the properties of the box 1. If I click here, I will have the properties of box 2. Okay,
Hmm.
now
I
there
see.
is another thing, like you can ghost other objects or show all objects when you have other networks. Let's not touch
Mhm.
this one yet, but this one has a blue because it's been displayed. If I want to display this one, then I can display by clicking the blue one.
I see. I see.
Now, what if you want both of them to be displayed? What you have is this thing that is like toggle the template flag, and it's like a preview of if you want to check nodes in the how they look, but you don't want to
Hmm.
deselect this, you can click on this one. So I can create a sphere, right? So if I click here,
Hmm.
now this one will be displayed as the preview. But if I click here, I can see
All
the
right.
box. So I'll demonstrate you something now. So we were talking about these parameters, and this box has like the size, the center, which is basically the pivot point, the rotate. You can do many things here, and also you can change the mesh, can change the subdivisions here, like we want two by two, maybe. Okay, and
Mhm.
what we want is to scale this. So I click middle mouse click, and just drag. Okay, and then I have
Right.
this box. But if I leave the node, I won't be able to see. Let me delete this one. If I if I click here, the other box is not displayed, right? I can only see one.
Mhm.
And the reason is we are not telling Houdini which is the output. And Houdini is a little bit different. It's not like Max or Maya where everything you create in the world then is displayed unless you hide it. Here,
Mhm.
what you see here, the blue one is the final output, or at least is one you want to show. So if we want to see both of them, we will use a node called merge. And again, as we progress, we will use these nodes more and more. So first, let me undo this. So if I see this dot here, this is an output, and this is an input. So basically, anything that goes here is an input, and output will go below. So I just click,
Right.
drag, and then I click and drag the other one. And now I still don't see them because this one is not displayed. But if I click on this, now I can see that two of them are being displayed, which is
Mhm.
basically my final output. At the end, if I want to export an FBX, because many people ask how you can export FBX files, I think I'll use export or FBX, maybe this one. No, not this one. Oh, I didn't install my game dev toolkit. So let's just uh, let's just do it another day maybe. I won't
Mhm.
install it now.
S- So to clarify, whatever node has that light blue icon, it is the final output. It is the main one, right?
Yes, yes, it's the final,
Mhm.
and it's not necessarily
Okay.
the last in the chain. If I have like a spear here, a sphere, and then click on here, and I go back, I will see the sphere. And if I don't want to
Mhm.
see anything, I click this one. This means
Okay.
that
Okay.
I'm not displaying anything. So if I want to merge another object, I will just drag this one, and then I will move this one here. Okay, so
Mhm.
this is a geometry node, and as you can see, this has its own properties. So if I just scale this, like you see that everything is being scaled, right?
Right.
So
Mhm.
basically, what you will have here is like nodes, like let's say this is your house, um, maybe this is your, I don't know, your trees, and then your trees have like, let's create a tooth. So increase the height. I will click the handle so you can see.
Mhm.
And if you click on this one, you can move it. Basically
Right.
the same operations we know in any package. Let's say this is our trees. So now both of them are displayed. But if I don't want to see the trees, then I just click off this. And this one is important because
Mhm.
when you have like, let's say you're doing a procedural landscape, then sometimes Houdini can become quite slow. Even with a very powerful machine, it takes some time to load like many instances of an object. And
Mhm.
if the logic is too complex, then you may want to turn off one of these if your computer is not too good. Okay?
All right. Right.
Okay, I will show you another thing that is important for artists. So far, any questions about like the geometry
Mm,
node?
I'm not. I am understanding everything. I was about to ask you then why would you even hide it, but you just explained it, right? Houdini tends to get slow over time as you work with more nodes, so it makes sense.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's for organization. Just like in Max or Maya, maybe you just want to hide some things and you don't
Right.
you don't
Right.
want to
Right. Right.
display them. Okay, so um,
Yes.
the next thing is that we are gonna click here, and we are gonna split this window, split paint top bottom. I won't get into many details like this, you can play with this, but I want to show you something. You can have different viewports, right? What I want to show you here is one very important viewport that is very important for artists, and actually for anyone. It's like, if I click here, I will want to check the geometry spreadsheet, this one. I will click the plus icon and then go here, inspector and geometry spreadsheet, and this one will be very common. Okay, and I want you to explain you something here. Houdini is a little bit different than a common 3D package in a sense that these are the points, these are the vertices, these are the primitive, and these are the details. Okay, so that's a little bit confusing for artists because we know that we have, I think I was playing with this thing. Okay, so in, let's say, in Max or in Maya or wherever, you have like, you have your cube here, right?
Yes.
And then this one is your vertex, this one is your edge, and then this one is your face, right? So you have like 3 of them, like vertex, edge, and face, right?
Yeah.
So let me write it. So Houdini actually has 4 of them. Houdini has an extra one which is special for Houdini, and it's called point. Okay? So many artists confuse this one with this one, right? So what's the difference between a point and a vertex, right? So in some cases the points and the vertices are the same, but not necessarily. A point in Houdini is basically just a point in the space. Let's just say like this is a point in my 3D space, right? And it's here. It's like floating here, just one point. So a point, by default, it will have some attributes, which are these ones. If I click on points, you will see the P, X, Y, and Z, which is the position. Okay? So normally you have the position attribute, right? But in Houdini we can create many attributes. We can create normals, we can create color, we can create our custom attributes, which are basically just parameters. What's the closest word that you have for parameter for an artist? Properties? I don't know. um, so you can have many, like you can have normal, you can have like p scale, which is the scale of the point. You have the normals. You have like you can have like anything. You can have as many as you want. You can have like vertex color or just like anything you want to put here on point. And of course you can actually put these attributes here, but the point will be a very important thing for us in Houdini, because I think this is the most confusing thing about when you want to transfer from 3ds Max or Maya and you want to move into Houdini. You start looking into these tutorials where they tell you, okay, let's point, and then we have vertex, and then it's like, why do we have vertex and point, right? Aren't they the same? And not in the context of Houdini. Actually, a point is not attached to the geometry. Like if you see a vertex here, I can have a I can have this box, and I can have vertex 1, 2, 3, 4, uh, whatever number that is. And actually, let's just check how many of them we have. Okay, we have 8. So we have like 8 vertex, and this doesn't change, right? The box always have like 8 vertices. Uh, but you can have many points. You can have 100 points, or 1,000, or even 1 point,
Hmm.
and they can be anywhere. But they don't affect how the geometry looks, right?
What are they for exactly then?
So points are used like a position where you want to spawn objects. Normally, you will want to scatter points around an object, and let's say you want to grow some plants, and okay, let's grow the plants here. Wherever point there is, there will be a plant, right? Not necessarily
Hmm.
where the vertices are, but where the points are. Or maybe you want to spawn an object here, and now you have another box here. Basically, it's
Hmm.
being used because we will copy geometry to points later on, and it's
Right.
quite a common operation. We will have many ways of doing that. So another thing is that the edge and face, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, but in the context of Houdini, those are kind of like the same. Of course, the face is like close and is between edges, but Houdini takes any of this as a primitive, right?
I see.
So you can
Hmm.
see it here. Where's my mouse? Here. So if I hold the mouse here and then click on this node info, I will see that I have 6 primitive, 24 vertex, 8 points, and 6 polygons,
Six.
right?
Hmm.
So primitive is not necessarily an edge. Primitive is basically any geometry that is out there. And polygons is the geometry that is close between the edges, right?
Right.
And what you have here is essentially the attributes that we have in the box that you see here. The center, the size, etc.
Hmm.
And as you see here, if you see points here, you can see the attributes. Okay,
Points. Yes.
this is the P attribute, which stands for position, and you can see it here. And to be honest, even if you're an artist, you want to take a look at this. Not so much about these details, but we will add like custom attributes, and we will want to check what's going on because it's hard to check it here.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's the main difference for Houdini and any other package. We have this very important, very important point. Okay,
Yes. Yes.
okay, so let's continue.
Could you quickly show us how to create those points, by the way? Since
Sure.
since you just talked about it.
Yep, that's what I was
Mhm.
about to do it.
Nice.
Okay, so let me delete this. And okay, so we have this box, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say you want to scatter some points. Okay, so I'm going
Yes.
to show you two nodes here. One is the group node, and another one is the scatter point. Okay, so first I'm going to show you the scatter. If I right click, or click tab and type scatter, what I will do is create points from this. And if you drag here, it says geometry to scatter points onto. So if I click this one, then you see if I click on this, you see I lost my attributes. Now my geometry is gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
I only have points. So what I have here, and if I check the attributes, I'm spawning 1,000 points, which you can see here. If I click here, you see 99, which start
Right.
from 0. I have 1,000, but let's say I just want 20 points. And now I will have this 20 points scattered around along the surface. And if I click this one, you can see that the points are placed within the boundaries of the box, but not inside. Uh, not inside the box. I'll show you later how to do that when we need to. But basically, these points can serve as spawning points. So let's do something interesting. Okay. So let's modify this one. And this is the most powerful thing about Houdini is that you can change this part and anything will be updated. So let me click on this and then let me check this one. Okay, I can see the points, and actually I can see the
Mm.
points more clear here. If I click on points, I will be able to display the points even if I'm not here. If I'm here, you can see the points are just on the vertex. But if
Mm.
I click here, the points are around the cube. So let me change the size. I will put this one here and check how the points are updated.
Right.
Okay.
I was wondering something, something silly. You say that Houdini often tends to get heavy, right, with the attributes and everything on the scene.
Mm-hmm.
But do the points contribute to the slowdown of the program? Are they heavy when there are many and many objects, or they don't matter?
Uh, they do matter. There are ways to save some memory, but of course, the
Hmm.
more points you have, the heavier it will be. Because what Houdini will do is basically do the work for you, which is like every artist's dream, right? Like instead of
Hmm.
in 3ds Max, you will copy the object. Let's say I give you a task and I tell you, put me a sphere for each one of these points. Just put me a sphere and you put it manually and you move it and then you duplicate it and then you put it here and then you duplicate it and then you put it here, right? So
Hmm.
basically, the more
Yes,
points you have, the more work you need to have when you want to place the spheres,
I see.
right? So it's not different with a computer. The more points you have and the more instructions, then the longer it will take to process.
I see. I see. Especially if you, by mistake, click a high amount of points and then spawn and then crash, right?
Yeah, which is very very common, especially if you don't have a good computer. Like this one is not very good, uh, but even with a very good one, you don't want to. I mean,
Mm.
you don't want to scatter so many.
All right. All
Right?
right.
And just be aware of that. But fortunate for us, we have ways to make it really fast, even with many points. So I'll step by step we will get into that.
Hmm.
Okay, so now you can see I can change the box and the points will automatically update, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to do is create some spheres here. So what I will do is create a sphere. And let me check the sphere in comparison to the size of the box. I will change the primitive to polygon mesh. And then you can see that like I have many points here. I will reduce the number of points. Maybe something like this. Okay, now this is too big, so I will change the scale here. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
now what I will do is use a very very important node, which is uh, copy to points. This is very very common. So this is basically the manual work you were looking for. So here I will type copy, and I have many copies. I have like copy to points, I have copy stamp, copy and transform. We will use copy to points. Uh, it's they all do the same, except for this one and this one. But these two essentially are two different types of copy. Both of them copy, but they behave in a different way. So we will use copy to points. Then we will just place it here. And first, in the left, we will put the geometry we want to copy, and in the right,
Mm-hmm.
we want to put the points. So what we have here is for each point, I'm spawning the sphere. Okay,
Right.
and because this is entirely procedural, I can change the size, right? Or I can
Mm-hmm.
change the radius, something like this. Or even I can change the count, like I can put like 35 and I have more points, right?
Right.
Okay, so we have a problem here, and that is we lost our box. So how we get it is very simple. Remember that only the things that are here are going to be displayed. And if I render this, I will only see the spheres.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, not the box.
Right.
So actually rendering is a very good way to test which thing I'm exporting. Anything that is
Mm-hmm.
being rendered is being exported at the end. So if we want to see the
Okay.
box, we just need to create a merge node and then click on this, and now we have the spheres um, on the box. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
all good
Gotcha.
so far.
Gotcha. Yeah. It seems a little unpractical to have to merge all of your meshes all the time, but I get it. I get it. I understand it.
Yeah, I you get used to it, and the reason is you want to. Sometimes you don't want to merge things. Sometimes you just want objects to be separated. That
Exactly.
that's one
Yes.
way. That's one reason, and you have the option. And I won't get into the details of the merge node because I mean we'll go in slow here. But
Mm-hmm.
um, okay, so I'll show you another cool thing, which is the group node. This one is also very useful. So if I click group, right click, type group, I have many types of group, and you can play with them. I find like the most useful ones are like this one, this one, group by range, and sometimes this one,
Mm-hmm.
group by expression. So I will click on this one. So click group here. So what it asks is basically an input. Where do you want to create the groups? And if you click on this one, you can see that nothing has happened. But if I click on the handle, which is, if you don't see anything happening in the viewport, just click on this one on the handle. It's basically a preview of the node you're
One
using.
que
In
one
this
question.
case, mhm,
Why did the spears disappear?
because we are only checking this one, and only this one is visible, and the only input it has is the box. So
Right. So for the group to be seen too, it has to be connected to the bottom node,
if
right? To the merge.
yes,
Okay. Okay.
yes.
All right. I'm getting it. I'm getting it.
So
All
what
right.
we're gonna do is we're going to create a group that only selects the faces that are facing upwards, which is kind of useful, right? Like in game dev, sometimes like in materials you want to put a snow on top and you don't want to paint it manually, so you put like a vector.
Mm-hmm.
Same here. Sometimes you want to put, let's say, you want to scatter some rocks, but you only want to scatter in the surface that is facing like a plane surface, right? You don't want to scatter the rocks
Right.
like if they were flying. So
Mm-hmm.
what I'm gonna do here is I have many ways to create groups here. I'm gonna show you one of them. Um, First, um, yeah, okay, I'm gonna show you the groups. So if I check this one, keep by normals, you will see that everything is selected. You can see a direction here. So in this case, it's the z-axis. So these ones are selected, and the spread angle is too wide. So if I lower it, you will see that only the positive faces
Mm-hmm.
of this face are selected. But this is not what we want. What we want is the upper face. So we just change this one and put one here. Okay.
Right.
So once that's done, um, we have a group, and the group name, you can see two names here. The top one is the node, and the node is unique. So if I Control C and Control V, I can paste new nodes, and you see that automatically it will be named group 2 because any node in this network cannot be cannot have the same name. Just be aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Oh, one quick question. Let's say that you have plenty of geometry. Maybe beneath that rectangle you have another one, and they're not touching, and you want to select both of their upper faces. Does that method work the same then? Does
is
that method,
like if I have two of them,
yeah, two of them and one on top of the other? Like that method still calculates the y position and the spread angle for each geometry or for the entire system.
actually is for each face. So it doesn't care. We
Mm-hmm.
don't care which kind of geometry we have here. So if I create another box, okay, I put it here. Let me put the center here. Okay, and then I merge the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Let me delete this one. So I merge this one and this one. And now I want to put this one here. What I will see is that both of them are selected
Mm-hmm.
the top face.
Right. That's great. Okay.
If you don't want to select one of them, then very easy. You could. This is a very cool feature. If you click this and drag like this, it will disconnect.
That's great.
So if you
Can you?
want to only have this one and this one not, then just don't merge them, right? And then you have the group
Right,
for
right,
this
right.
one, and then let's merge this group. And now we have both of them, but only this one has the group. And you can see that here. If you have the primitive, you can see the group here.
Mm-hmm.
Only the face 2, which should be this one. If I click on this, you can see the numbers of the faces. This is
Mm-hmm.
vertices, these are faces. So you can see this is face 2. So only this one is selected, but this one is not. If I
Mm-hmm.
go to 11, this one is 0. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that makes it more clear, like why sometimes we shouldn't merge anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's convenient. So let me delete this. Now I want to do something. First of all, these names are confusing. So what I want to do is rename this node. If I want to rename it, I just double click on this and then let's say select top faces. Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Funny thing is when you start writing code, you learn to type it like this. Like maybe the first is minus top faces, and if you press spacebar, it will create an underscore. You cannot have names with blank spaces.
Right.
So whatever your convention is, try to keep it consistent. Whatever works for you really is just for organization. Some people like to read with capital letters. Some people like to read it like this. So now I have the group, but the group name is here in primitive. I can see the group one, right?
Right.
And this name is not the same as this one. This one is the node name, but the group name is this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see it here. So I can see top faces. I can change the name. You can see that the group will change here, right?
I get it.
Okay, now let's do something fun. I want to put all these spheres that are here. Let me close this. I want to put all of them. I want to only spawn the ones in the top. Or to better say it, I only want to scatter points in the top. I don't want to scatter points in the sides.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So what I will do is drag this and put it here. Right?
All right.
And nothing has happened. And the reason is we haven't specified that the scatter node will use this group to only scatter points in this group. And it's very
Mm-hmm.
easy. If you click on here, you can type the
Mm-hmm.
name, top faces, but if you don't remember, you can actually click on this one and it will tell you all the groups that are available.
So for every node, you have the choice to pick on what group it is being applied to, right?
Yes, yes, and for most nodes we have these options. Groups are mostly used for selecting where do I want to spawn things and where do I don't want to spawn things.
That's great.
Okay, so
That's great.
let's click the top faces, and now you can see that only the points are scattered in the top area. And you can easily see this here, like this one. If you check the points here, you can see the points here are being scattered, right?
Right.
And the points are only in the top. And again, because this is procedural and we want to change, maybe we have too few. Let's put 100. Now we have a lot. And if you start putting more, you become more slow and slower. And this is like very low res. But if you have something like more complex geometry, you don't want to do this. So what the option we have? Are you gonna say something?
Yeah, one question. I know it goes against the procedural mentality we're trying to learn in here, but can you, with the groups, just manually select faces and group them instead of picking it by angle?
You can. You can. I'll show you that
Oh.
there's a bad dash of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's go
Yeah.
back to our box here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I told you before that we have these numbers. These are the primitive numbers. Okay.
Right.
You can see that 2 is here. Okay. So let's create
Yes.
another group. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what you can do is you have two options. You can, oops, you can click to here,
Mm-hmm.
and you will see that the 2 is selected. Or
Right.
what you can do is select the face here, tap in the viewport, you will have the same properties. So you just type
Mm-hmm.
group, and what it does is create a group with the same number, right? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you can do that. But let's say I want to change this geometry and I want to add subdivisions. Now let's check the geometry here. The face on the top is number 2, but what happens if I change the subdivisions? Something like this. Or maybe I have 2
Mm-hmm.
of them. The group here selected will be another one. Will be this one. Because
Mm-hmm.
this is still number 2. And Houdini is not like smart enough to know that you select the top and it will try to preserve that. In fact, that goes like against the mentality we want to use here.
Exactly. Yes.
This is the reason you don't want to select things in the viewport. Because if you do changes, and you will change, uh, everything will break. Now your points will be scattered like in this area, right?
Yeah. Now you need to do more work. Yes.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do it if it's something you know it's not gonna change for sure. Then yeah, feel free to select it manually.
Right.
But if you need to change it, be aware that it will break any node below.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have this, and we have like many points here, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they have a lot of things. So what we have here, if we click on copy to points, we have this option of pack an instance. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so if you do that, you can see that all the points, all the numbers here are gone, right?
Right.
And let me click on this one. if we check the points, actually all of them only have like position. It's like you package everything. There is here you see that there is no geometry. There are no
Mm-hmm.
vertices, no primitive, no vertices. Despite this, uh, you can see the geometry is there, but it's
Mm-hmm.
packaged. It's like you put it in a package, and this will be more evident if this had textures, because if this had some materials applied on, you won't be able to see them.
Okay.
And it's not that you lost it. Uh, what you have is another node called unpack. So what you do here, you put it here, and then you go back to reality, right?
All right.
So
All
that you have
right.
your primitive and like everything, right?
I see. I see.
And you can actually change the number of iterations. Like sometimes you have like super huge graph, and let's say you unpack here, and here you pack again, and you pack again here. If you put like one iteration, it will only unpack this one, but not this one.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, before exporting, make sure you have this one if you package any object. Otherwise, you don't have geometry.
Mm-hmm.
Consider this a way just to visualize. And then if I click like 1000, you can see it's almost instant. And I can change the
Right.
number like almost in real time
Mm-hmm.
with very few lag. Like, like it's because the points are being packaged.
Mm-hmm.
That's one way one way to avoid it.
I
Okay,
see. I see.
so so far we have been looking into the geometry tab.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we have seen a little bit about the interface, and we have seen the most common nodes like the box, the groups, the scatter points, copy, the merge node, and to be honest, you use this quite a lot, right?
Right. I like
So,
that
yep,
that you've gotten straight to the point to what you usually use on your job, right? Instead of teaching me every little icon. I find that very useful to me, very productive for me. Um, uh, you go ahead, please.
yeah, and I mean, uh, for me it was very hard to learn. I mean, there are very good tutorials out there for sure, and they will
Mm-hmm.
explain like in more detail. Of course, we can get into more detail about this, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like that for an introduction, like you don't want to go to every single detail about Houdini
Mm-hmm.
because you can get into very technical things like writing code and other things. Like we can see them later. There is no rush. But yeah, I mean, still, if you need more information about anything specific, uh, those tutorials are available. Like the information is there. It's just that as an artist, it's hard to know where to start, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so I think
If you
that
have
will be pretty
anything,
much for today. There are many things I want to show you, but I think I can do it in another session.
yeah, if you have any topic in particular or anything you want to explain, just write it in the comments, right? And let us
Yeah,
know.
yeah. If you want any particular topic to cover, just write it so I can know. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
All right.